I think my microphone's about to fall off the table. Let's fix it. I'm Abby with MotorCityNerds. Can we talk about Salem'S Lot, the original? I didn't know how many people still love this. I love the original Salem'S Lot. But let's make sure my microphone doesn't fall off. Hi to all the new subscribers. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I miss True Detective. I miss Interview with the Vampire so much. But let's talk about some other vampires, okay? Because I definitely think this could possibly be tied into the Dark Tower series they're doing, maybe, over on HBO with Mike Flanagan. I'm on OF. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all the things down below. Rest in peace, David Soul. You're an icon. You're the greatest. I watch this movie every year with my sisters and my mom. Before my dad passed, this was one of his favorites. I love the original Salem'S Lot. I haven't watched the remake in a long time, but I don't remember disliking it. But I'm really excited for this. But I also am like, I just want it done well. Like anything we want. We want it done correctly. It's been a minute since I've done them, but I normally do watch-alongs over on TikTok or on Instagram or whatever. So you should follow me on my other socials if you want to hear me do commentary over that for funsies. But I love the original Salem'S Lot. I don't care what anybody says. That is some of the creepiest vampire imagery and scenes when Mike, the caretaker, is just sitting there with his glowy eyes. It's so scary. Danny Glick and his brother scratching at the window. And the thing about it is, a lot of the scariest stuff, including like Kurt Barlow, which is the bald-looking one who pops up out of the coffin, is it's basic camera tricks, and they still work and they still hold up. And it's some of the creepiest vampire stuff in anything. It really is. I have all my windows locked right now because I'm nervous even thinking about it. It's great. Yes, it was a made-for-TV movie, but it's pretty good. Is it ridiculous sometimes? Yeah. Is it good? Yeah. And I love the Salem'S Lot story. I also think it caused a lot of the fears me and my sisters have, honestly. Burlington, Michigan, I'm looking at you. I never see anybody there. Your service goes out anytime you go into there. The only time I've ever seen a human in Burlington, Michigan, when I'm going through it, it's a tiny little town of nothingness, are people at the liquor store. And maybe that's one or two. But if anywhere is Salem'S Lot, it's you. And I think what makes Salem'S Lot so scary, now I'm a Stephen King junkie. I got Stephen King everywhere all over here if you can't tell. What makes Salem'S Lot so scary is it's such a small town that it's like, would anybody notice if something was going on? Now, one thing you do need to know about Stephen King is that a lot of the villains in it, in all of his stories, not all, but a lot of them are vampire-esque, if that makes sense. The scary part about Pennywise isn't that he eats you. It's not, he eats the flesh and stuff for funsies. That's the scary part. Pennywise eats their soul. That's the horrifying part. You don't pass on. You're eaten by him. He eats your soul. He eats your fear. In an essence, he's vampire-like. If you've seen Dr. Sleep, the Knot, they are vampire-esque, sucking the shine out of people. So there's different variations throughout his works of vampires. But Salem'S Lot is the true vampire as we know it story. Oh my God, Fred Willard's in it. Fred Willard is hilarious. And some of it is kind of, I don't know, some of it is kind of, it's a made-for-TV movie, so some of it is ridiculous, some of it isn't as good, but the vampire stuff is genuinely scary. When Kurt Barlow first shows up in that house and he's huge and scary, that is a scary design. That is why it is still used today. That is a creepy, creepy design. The head vampire, even when they're delivering the coffin and they're like, oh, it's cold and all this stuff, and then it does have to do with the Marston house being this place of evil that attracts certain people or certain things or whatever, kind of like Derry, Maine. Are you guys picking up what I'm laying down? That's not what I'm here to talk about yet, because we have our huge Dark Tower stuff coming up. But I feel like the original doesn't get the credit it deserves. And if you haven't seen it, yeah, it's long. You can probably chop it up into 2 days if you wanted to. But I love it. It is so good. And on TikTok, there's like a fan base for it, and that made me so happy. Still alive and well, but let's check this out together. Oh, it is going to Max. Okay, so this is from Variety. Warner Bros. Salem'S Lot remake appears to be headed to Max instead of theaters. When was this posted? You guys know that we don't do anything serious here. We're here hanging out. Oh my God, this is from all the way in October? Did Warner Brothers get spooked? The studio is looking to jettison its horror film Salem'S Lot to Max. Sources say Warner Brothers developed it for a theatrical rollout, but after sitting on the shelf for a year, Gary Dauberman, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, directed Stephen King adaptation is poised to make its debut on Warner Bros. Discovery streaming platform. I think this is happening because if you've read The Dark Tower, Father Callahan, who's a character in Salem'S Lot, shows up in the Dark Tower series. I'm not going to get too crazy on you guys. Just know that a character from this, the priest, ends up in that story. HBO and Max have already said that they are working with Mike Flanagan, who we trust and we love, to do a Dark Tower series. I love Pedro Pascal. Do not cast him as Roland. I do not want us to get Pedro Pascal fatigue, but no, it's not that I don't want him as Roland or honestly, he probably would make a good Man in Black, but I give somebody else a shot. I love him. I love Pedro Pascal. He's the reason I started reading Game of Thrones, and that's like my main thing if you've been over here. So when Oberyn bit the dust, I was like, no, get me the books. Get me the books. This is bull. So I love him. I love him to death, but I don't want to see him in everything. But I do. I think that they are holding the brakes because maybe, and I'm not, this is Abby guessing, maybe they're going to tie some stuff into the Dark Tower series they want to do. A source with the knowledge of the back and forth says that the movie is not a reflection of the film's quality. I like that it's a film. I mean, the original's a film too, but it's like a mini-series, a TV movie, kind of like It was, and with the original Tim Curry. The film's quality is due to the fact that the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike has created a growing need for Max content. Has it? Or are you just making stupid decisions, HBO and Max? Also, I'm available to sit in the corner and raise my hand and tell you that's a dumb idea and that's a good idea. I continue to tell you this, but you don't see me. But anyway, I'm here. Because you seem to be making really stupid ideas. Salem's Lot is one of Warner Brothers' films targeted to make the jump, but a Warner Bros. Spokesperson said no decision has been made about the film's future distribution plans. You're gonna put it on streaming, we know. Salem's Lot, which shot in Massachusetts in 2021, was intended as a September 2022 release, with the month proving to be a successful pre-Halloween horror corridor for the studio. But Warner Bros. Pushed the film to spring 2023, citing COVID-related post-production delays. Earlier this month, Salem's Lot quietly moved off the schedule altogether. Stop this. You're going to greenlight 17 Game of Thrones prequels, which I'm all for, but stop it. Stop it. Stop it. I don't know why anybody hasn't... If you're going to do the Dark Tower, stick with Stephen King then. I know you guys all want universes. You have one already. But if you're going to go into the Dark Tower and things like this, people love Salem's Lot. People love vampires. What are you doing? People love Stephen King. If you're trying to tell me that more people love George R. R. Martin more than they love Stephen King, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. Where were we? I'm an idiot. Prompting speculation that it would be a Warner Brothers Discovery tax write-off in the vein of last year's Batgirl. Don't do this. Starring Top Gun Maverick's Lewis Pullman, the film's cast includes Mackenzie Lee, Bill Camp, you guys are all great, began developing the project in 2019. Also wrote the screenplay. James Wan is a producer on the new Salem's Lot. That's big. Via his Atomic Monster, the company behind a bevy of Warner Bros. Horror hits from the Conjuring franchise. So he's not directing or writing or anything, but he is producing. So, okay. That's good. King described the Salem's Lot remake... let's see what the man himself has to say. King described the Salem's Lot remake on Twitter, X, writing, the Warner Brothers... How stupid do you feel that people still have to put, like, X/Twitter instead of just calling it X? What a dumb move, Elon Musk, you idiot, you waxy turd. King described the Salem's Lot remake on X/Twitter, writing, the Warner Bros. Remake of Salem's Lot, currently shelved, is muscular and involving. It has the feel of old Hollywood. When a film was given a chance to draw a breath before getting to business. When attention spans were longer, in other words. Tell him, Stephen King. Tell him that everybody's becoming an idiot with short-form content. I love short-form content as much as the next person. But when did everybody turn into total idiots that can't sit down and watch something? It bothers me. I think it bothers all film goers or anybody where it's concerning. It's genuinely concerning to me where I'm like, can you pay attention? I'm not saying everybody needs to be a cinephile or read every book or read the goddamn Silmarillion or something. But the fact that people can't sit and watch something for 5 minutes is a problem that is scary to me as a society. It's hard for me to pay attention. I'm all over the place. But if you can't sit down and go A, B, C and watch something or read a paragraph, that's an issue. And I know it's not for everybody. I know everybody's different, but this 10-second content thing it's concerning to me. Tell him, Steven, you boss. As with the original 2-part CBS miniseries from 1979, the storyline follows a writer who returns to his hometown on the fictitious Jerusalem's Lot to find he must then do battle with vampires. The book also was adapted in 2004 by TNT for an Emmy-nominated series starring Rob Lowe. I remember liking that one, I just don't watch it as much. I think they were trying to make me pay for it, and I already have the original, hard copy. In the past, King novels have boosted Warner Bros. At the box office, most notably with Andy Muschietti's low-budget adaptation of It, which earned $704 million worldwide in 2017. That's what I'm saying here. Stephen King is normally a safe bet. We love him, we support him, and even if you're not super into his books, you see that name and you like to go see it or watch it or whatever it is, you know those titles. People might not know Gerald's Game or whatever. And what's interesting to me, just side note, one, I saw somebody make a list on TikTok or on Instagram. They were like, top 5 books for Stephen King starters. And I'm like, those are not starters. But a lot of people, their top 1 is The Green Mile, which I can respect. That kind of shocks me. I always think people will go for The Shining or Misery or It. And the top 1, whenever I ask people, it is The Green Mile. So what's your favorite Stephen King book or movie? Or Shawshank. I feel like a lot of men really like Shawshank. I love Shawshank. We all love Shawshank, but I don't. It just tends to be. I think I've dated like 2 people seriously who actually really loved Shawshank Redemption. I don't think one of them knew it was by Stephen King. See if we can find bigger news. Oh, okay, here we go. From Nerdist. Stephen King reveals Salem's Lot. Okay, this is from Nerdist. Stephen King reveals Salem's Lot is quite good. Author unsure why Warner Bros. Is holding back. Start talking, Stephen, because people will listen to you. One of Stephen King's earliest novels is coming to the big screen at some point. The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Annabelle Comes Home director Gary Dauberman, I hope I'm pronouncing that okay, will soon be helming a big screen adaptation. This is from February of this year. We already just read something from last year that said more than this. The epic vampire tale was one of King's earliest success stories and was his follow-up novel to his breakthrough hit To Carrie in 1975. Dauberman will not only direct the film, but he's writing the screenplay as well. He also wrote the screenplay for both chapters of the blockbuster It. So that's good news. He obviously understands Stephen King's writing, is what I'm saying. And I understand a lot of people have issues with Stephen King's endings and things like that. But if somebody like Mike Flanagan, who understands and really appreciates this world and really appreciates this work, is in charge of it, then I feel better. Horror maestro James Wan is one of the film's producers. We love him. Unfortunately, in the latest round of Warner Brothers release date shakeups, Salem's Lot is lost. Okay. Unfortunately, in the latest round of Warner Brothers release date shakeup, Salem's Lot lost its release date. The movie is no longer on slot at Warner Bros. Upcoming theatrical calendar. Its release date remains unknown, and reports indicate it could ultimately head to Max. Okay, well then put it on Max! And that's a shame, because it has Stephen King's very own seal of approval, which is a big deal. Oh, we got tweets. We might assume that all the shifting around indicates the upcoming Salem's Lot movie isn't much good, but one important voice speaking out to contradict that hypothesis is Stephen King himself. To share that the Salem's Lot movie is a quality one. In fact, Stephen King shared, "I've seen the new Salem's Lot, and it's quite good." The same thing he did when the new It was being made. Sometimes I don't trust Stephen King. I love him to death, but sometimes when it comes to movies, I'm like, is it, or are you just saying that? But I feel like he does genuinely give the opinion he has, whether he's totally correct and we agree or not. I do feel like he does give his actual opinion, which I can respect. And I'm sorry, and if you've been over here, you know I say this. I love Game of Thrones. That is my jammy. That is my thing we talk about the most over here. But George R.R. Martin don't do that. He's always like, it's the greatest thing ever, until one bump in the road happens and he's like, it's all their fault. It's all their fault. Stephen King at least will go, I hated that. I loved it. I really liked it. I didn't like it. And I can respect that. So this is Stephen King's tweet. Between you and me, Twitter, I've seen the new Salem's Lot, and it's quite good. Old school horror filmmaking, slow build, big payoff. Not sure why WB is holding back. Not like it's embarrassing or anything. Who knows? I just write the fucking things. I love him. Back to the article. In full, Stephen King noted, between you and me, okay. The cast, we already talked about that. The history of Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot is essentially a modern retelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Okay, I mean, not really though. And centers on the author who returns to his hometown in Maine to write about a creepy abandoned mansion that haunted him since childhood. Not long after arriving back home, he finds out that the mansion was bought by a mysterious and reclusive antiques dealer who is a vampire master. Undead keeper. That's what we always say over here. If I ever use the term, we used it for WandaVision, we use it for lots of things, and it comes from Salem's Lot. We always call it the undead keeper. That's the person who's alive, who's babysitting the vampire and make sure nobody comes near them while they're sleeping. And we were saying that with Agatha, the witch, and WandaVision. We were like, who's the undead keeper keeping you safe while you're not there or whatever. So if you guys ever hear me use that term, that's what I'm talking about. The person that's protecting whatever it is while it can't protect itself. 1979 miniseries. The novel was turned into a 2-part miniseries in 1979. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Tobe Hooper directed, blah, 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 blah. Favorite rental choice. Okay. 2004 miniseries, a TNT miniseries. I remember that. I watched it at my aunt's with everybody. That stuck closer to the book. Released in 2004, it features Rutger Hauer as Barlow and Rob Lowe in the lead. I remember this. This was another vampiric notch on the actor's belt. Not only was he the physical inspiration for Anne Rice's Lestat, we love Lestat here, but also he's toxic. I'm so excited for Interview with the Vampire to come back. Are we going to get more vampires to talk about? That'd be great. It remains to be seen if this new version of Barlow will stick closer to the 70s miniseries or the 2004 one or go off in a completely new direction. Okay, so we still don't have a release date, so why are we popping off about it right now? Because it was trending and stuff and I got all geeked. Okay, this is from February 19th, 2024. From Joe Blow. Salem's Lot, why is it still gathering dust? Okay, we're done with this article crap. Anyway, Salem's Lot. It's a jam. It's a jam. The original one's a jam. I need to rewatch the 2004 one, apparently. But I love Salem's Lot. I think it's great. I think it is a good starter if you want to read Stephen King. That's what I was saying. I saw somebody on Instagram, they were like, 5 books for Stephen King starters, and they were like Misery, The Shining, The Dark Half, which I can agree with that one to an extent, The Green Mile, and something else. And I was like, I don't know if I would have people start with those if you're getting into Stephen King. If I was going to say my 5 starters, if people were starting with, because Misery is rough. Anytime there's something creepy and scary with Stephen King, imagine it times 10, and Misery is one of those. It's great. If you want to read Misery, such a jam, but it's way more brutal. Same thing with The Shining. One thing with The Shining that in the movie I can understand, and I know he has issues with it, and it's perfect in a film standpoint, and this is where my film and my nerd brain argue. As a film, it is perfect. As an adaptation, it's not. And I get that. And I understand why Stephen King doesn't like it. But one of the creepiest things in The Shining is, one, it's very much about generational trauma. It's very much about fathers and their sons and that getting passed. It's very much about that. But in a film on screen, an axe is much more striking to see. So we see Jack Nicholson run around with that axe, right? But one of the scariest things to me in the books is it's not an axe. It's a croquet mallet. And that's brutal. And that's what he's running around with. But in a film, I understand an axe looks more menacing. It looks more striking. It's scarier visually than a croquet mallet. Reading it is very different. Books and film are 2 different mediums. Always remember that. But I definitely wouldn't say, yeah, start out with The Shining. Start out with this tome. If I was going to say you've never read Stephen King, but you like his movies and you like that vibe, I would say Carrie. And I think every middle schooler should have to read Carrie. My dad used to use Carrie all the time as an example. He would always say, you're Abby, you're kind with kind people, you're gentle with gentle people, but sometimes you got to be mean with mean people. You never know what people go home to every night. You never know what they're dealing with, like Carrie and her mom. You never know, and that's why you're never mean for no reason. I could have done anything in school or whatever, even now, and I would not be getting in trouble. But if my mom or my dad, when he was alive, found out I was picking on somebody for no reason, they were going to beat my ass in front of the whole school. That is the biggest thing they ever taught me is you are gentle with gentle people, you are kind with kind people, but sometimes, Ab, you got to be mean with mean people. It is what it is, but you are never mean for no reason. I think every middle schooler should have to read Carrie. It's not a long read. It's pretty short, and I would say Carrie, Salem's Lot. Which one of the shorts, I could be getting this wrong, but which one has The Body, which is Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption, Rita Ora and the Shawshank Redemption, which is Shawshank Redemption. They're all short stories. And one, is that Nightmares and Dreamscapes? If that's the one, that one. So those 3. Then probably Cujo's a rough one. Cujo's very, very sad. And Pet Sematary, if you're in the wrong state of mind or if you just recently lost someone, I don't recommend it. But I could put Pet Sematary up there. But yeah, my top 5 for like if you're just getting into reading Stephen King, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Oh, is that the one with Apt Pupil, too? Apt Pupil does not get the credit it deserves. And do you guys know that that's the reason Bryan Singer's a piece of shit rapist asshole? But he directed that, and that's how he picked Ian McKellen for Magneto, and, like, a bunch of people from the X-Men cast are in that. But Apt Pupil's very good. That's a short story, too. I think that's in the same book. But the fan in me wants to say Dolores Claiborne. But I know that isn't for... But that's great. Honestly, I know this is going to sound crazy, because it's so long, but The Stand. The Stand is really good, and I think it's really engaging. So if you're starting out with Stephen King, I would work up to The Stand. Honestly, I feel like you could kind of skip. I think Dr. Sleep is really good and really entertaining, and I'm a Dark Tower freak. So if you want, I always tell people this, but I also don't, because I'm like, you could just read The Gunslinger. The Gunslinger's great. It has one of the greatest openings to a book ever, which is The Man in Black fled across the desert and the Gunslinger followed. You could just read The Gunslinger, but don't do that. Read the whole thing. Don't quit after the first one. But you could, in theory, and I might throw that in if you want to read a series. I could throw that in, but I definitely think if you're going to start either way, start with Carrie and Salem's Lot. I do feel like those are shorter. You get used to his writing. If you smoke cigarettes, you're going to want to smoke 2 packs, no matter what you're reading, because everyone's toking up cigs. Oh, I was totally wrong. I was going to say it's either that or Everything's Eventual. This is different seasons. Okay. The Body, Shawshank Redemption, all of that. It's all in Castle Rock, which is, I always love that. Different seasons. I highly recommend that first, because that is Apt Pupil, The Body, which is Stand By Me, and The Shawshank Redemption. Those are all short stories, and they're all great. Apt Pupil is this kid finds out his neighbor's a Nazi, and at first you're like, oh man, he found out this scumbag's a Nazi, what's he gonna do? But then you find out that kid's nuts, and he's like, tell me every little thing about it. There's a movie with Ian McKellen in it, and that kid that passed away, who's really great, who's in the movie Sleepers that I always recommend. but it's really good. And then he flips it on him, and then all of a sudden the Nazi flips it back on him, and he's like, oh yeah, you think I haven't been pretending forever? It's the movie's good, and the short story's very good, and it never gets talked about enough, but that's Apt Pupil, and different seasons has all of those in it. I don't know why I always think it's Nightmares and Dreamscapes, but I think I like Nightmares and Dreamscapes too. But yeah, that has The Body, Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption, and Apt Pupil in it, so I highly recommend that. So if it was my top 5 I was giving you to start out with Stephen King, it'd be Different Seasons, Carrie, Salem's Lot, Christine, and The Stand. But I definitely think that the original Salem's Lot movie doesn't get the credit it deserves, and I don't understand why they're doing this. Actually, I do. Warner Brothers and Max, you're a bunch of idiots. Stop it. But tell me what your favorite Stephen King thing is, and tell me if you're excited for this and how much you love the original one, because I love the original Salem's Lot. And I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Oh my god, I really do. I love Stephen King so much. It's my favorite. And I'm doing a huge video. I just don't... It's hard to do, because I'm doing... True Detective is the Dark Tower. If you've watched True Detective, tell me that is not... The Carcosa symbol is not the Crimson King and everything. That's what first got me going on it. And I feel like maybe I should start it in chunks, but I've been having Stephen King on the brain. So when they were talking about this online today, I was like, no way. So I'm really geeked for it, but stop dicking around. I'm on OF, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all the things down below, and tell me what your favorite Stephen King story is. And tell me if you've ever seen Apt Pupil or read it, because it's great.